the show. It is May 25th, 2025, Season 4, Episode 20. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is, let's get him in here, Secular Rarity. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going, man? Thank you for joining.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It is going all right. I got a little sunburned over the weekend. So if you see me scratching furiously every so often, it's nothing to be concerned about other than apparently my not very good use of sunscreen. So I'm very pale in general because I stay inside, crouched in corners. Yelling at people on the internet. So I got outside, I touched grass. It was great. It was a fun experience.
Well, can confirm. I did adjust your saturation and give you a little bit more color before hopping on.
And I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. You know, this is what we do behind the scenes, right?
Right.
So the topic that I wanted to talk about today, and I would love to get into this with you, but I want to talk to other people about this too, is toxic skepticism. That's right, you guys. You're probably doing it wrong, and it might be a bad thing. So I want people to push back, but I do have some strong opinions, and I really do mean it. So let me get the phone number out there, and then let's talk about it. The phone number is, come on. There we go. 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Our call screener is waiting to take your call. We sincerely appreciate it. Oh, we already have somebody calling in, which is fantastic. We'd love to get more. Yeah. Okay. So I know that I talked to you a bit about this before the show. And so it's not going to be entirely new, but I've been thinking about the best way to kind of talk about this. And really, I'm not saying that the methodology is a problem with skepticism. I'm saying that skeptics are often the problem.
How we behave.
Yeah. So give me just one moment. Oh, yes, I can absolutely adjust our volumes.
Sorry. Didn't know that was going to make noise. I would have just said it if I knew.
No, you're good. You're good. I appreciate it. Let me get our volume up a little bit here. All right.
A little quiet.
And then come over here. I'm going to adjust our gain. This is what I can do while I'm live producing. Say something for me.
Check. Volume. My shirt is adorable. I don't know if you can see. It's very cute.
I think
you're good. Little Baphomet.
I think we're okay. Let's
okay.
We will see. Thank you for keeping an eye on the chat.
People will yell at us in a few minutes.
Let me maybe adjust this a little bit too. We'll see if that helps. Okay, cool. So the point that I'm trying to make with toxic skepticism is often in the approach of skepticism, we kind of lose track of what the goal is. And I kind of want to roll this back and talk about it just a little bit, right? Contextually, I was watching a therapist play a video game. And in this video game, there was a skeptic character who actually was doing a good job of representing skepticism. And this character was more concerned with outsmarting the situation and being right than he was concerned with a good outcome or doing the right thing or doing what was best for himself.
Yeah.
He was far more interested in pushing those pieces, and he did not contextualize his skepticism with where he was and what was needed in that situation.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, if you, I don't know, let's think of it like a really, really impossible, ridiculous example. Let's say you're living under the rule of an authoritarian government. And you want to see the mechanisms at work. And so in order to test the boundaries of what you are allowed to and not allowed to do, you you do something to push, um, and you see the consequences. Needing to figure that out, doing that only because you felt like you needed to be right, could be damaging for you, right? That's just an extreme example, but like we see it every day in our lives too. Before the show, we were talking to the
Real
other.
quick, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We are still very, very quiet according to people. Like,
Oh.
if you can bump us up a good bit, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let,
That is what they are saying.
okay.
I don't know how true.
I would be
They could all
happy.
be liars, though. I don't trust. I don't trust most of them.
Uh, let's see here. Let's see if that changes things. I have bumped it
Okay.
up quite. Oh, no wonder I didn't hit the make changes thing. All right, everybody,
Ah,
watch your volume. Things are going to get
yeah.
better. Turn it down
Be
just a little
careful.
bit. We're going to go up by about 10 decibels. Ready? One,
Yeah.
2, 3.
All
Hey,
right.
let's see if that's
Okay.
right.
Well, you sound louder to me for sure. So
And I think we're
I
on
don't know if
parity.
everybody else is in that boat. Hopefully so.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Cool. All right. Everybody's saying it's
Okay.
better. Cool. Go, go, go,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. I really appreciate it. So there are a couple of examples of toxic skepticism that came up before the show when we were talking to the volunteers for SKEPGEN, by the way. Hey, everybody. Hey, that's volunteering. Thank you so much. There's no way we'd be able to do this without you. And a couple of examples were, we were talking about how being a skeptic at the wrong place at the wrong time ruined a relationship. Right. I was with an ex-girlfriend, was my current girlfriend at the time. And we were on a road trip and she brought up astrology. And I just kind of reflexively said, well, that's all bullshit, right?
It's
And
probably how I would have responded.
I mean, yeah, and it was reflexive. And
Yeah.
she's like, "What
Not
do you?"
attempting to be rude, but like
Right?
when somebody says to me like, yeah, man, I go ghost hunting every weekend. I'm probably just going to reflexively be like, "Oh, that's a cool way to waste your life."
Okay,
Like,
okay.
I'm so sorry.
That is probably the way she took it. That is
Yeah, of
probably the
course.
way she took
Of
it.
course. Yeah.
And I think in my mind I was trying to because there are some people who get into tarot cards and stuff like that. Hell, V is got into tarot cards, knows that it's bullshit, but uses it as a kind of a therapeutic tool to help explore the things that they're thinking about and feeling and like do all of that. So there are people who can do stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
So my ex at the time, back to the story, she did not. She did not think it was bullshit.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? And so like I laid it out, what a Barnum statement is, how often, you can reliably, and then just kind of the obvious, right? Can you divvy up billions of people into 12 distinct categories? And can you say that only people with this personality were born on this? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah.
So she started crying and she told me that it felt like I had killed her puppy. I'd killed something that brought her joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I think I wasn't wrong. And also that was a stupid choice. Right. Now let's take it a little bit more intense. I'm not naming names because I don't want to start YouTube drama. But there are content creators in the skeptic space who care more about being, outsmarting a situation by, let's say, I don't know, platforming Jordan Peterson, platforming, really, really toxic people, right? Engaging with really, really shitty people and giving them your platform And they do
Mm-hmm.
it because they go, oh well, it just needs to bear out in the marketplace of ideas. But they're not recognizing that they are introducing their community and their audience. They're not seeing the consequence of the fact. And I think it's because skeptics often don't view themselves as part of a given situation. And I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking at you, but I think you're
No, no,
gonna,
no,
I think
no.
we
It's
agree
okay.
so far. I think that a lot of times skeptics will view themselves as like David Attenborough, just kind of, look at them in nature, just kind of like, what, not recognizing that by them observing and them being active, they are changing things around them, right?
Yeah.
You need to be aware of the observer effect because no one is a perfect island of neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
And what you are bringing to the table is changing things.
Right.
And I don't know, I feel like that's broad, but there are so many parts of that. And
Mm-hmm.
that feels like toxic skepticism. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think you touched on a lot of really good points, and I've got an example from recently in my life I want to mention in a moment. But I was having a conversation with a couple of friends not super long ago, maybe a month or so,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the people brought up something that I think is very important for us to be thinking about, especially in these types of spaces. I don't really know that you need to be going through all of this thought standing in the grocery store checkout line, right? I don't know that you really need to go through all this thought at the family dinner with the uncle or the brother or sister that says stuff that you find particularly crazy or offensive, right? But when you and I, for instance, engage on this type of platform, when other people engage in a space where they are presenting themselves in a manner of, look at this information. This is important information for us to study honestly and come to conclusion. When somebody is putting on an event as
Mm-hmm.
an organization, right? All of those types of moments. I think you really do need to have this conversation, and that is
So,
about. Go ahead.
no, go ahead and finish your thought.
I was just going to say that that conversation is about intention, perception, and execution. And I think those things are deeply important for us to make sure that we are cognizant of in how we engage in these spaces. If our
Okay.
intention is this and the perception is completely different, our execution was poor and we need to adjust,
Right.
right?
So, let's challenge that because
Sure.
I do want to challenge that. Actually, there's a caller who has
Yeah, 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 bring them in.
a opinion similar to yours. Maybe I can knock these both out. We have such amazing like people on the line that I want to start getting. Oh my goodness. Okay, so
Yeah.
first let's bring out Kina in Washington. Kina, you're live on the show.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so toxic skepticism. You got a bone to pick with me. What's going on?
So we were talking about this a little bit before the show. You were commenting about how um, try, trying to talk someone out of their beliefs can be sort of infantilizing, and also it's kind of like you're making decisions for them. And I think that is itself a case of toxic skepticism because partly because I think like anytime two people interact, you're going to be making decisions for each other, at least to some extent. So unless you have a really good reason for why this is not a decision you should be making, then like, it doesn't really matter. Like it's kind of a moot point.
Oh.
But also,
Okay. So can I want to contextualize that a little bit. Elliot, we're going to put a pin in the challenging people who are putting on an event because I do want to talk about that. I thought they were going to be similar, but let me. So
No, no
Kina, you're responding to something that I want to present to the audience to interact with here, and that is the context of toxic skepticism here. I would think that if I've had plenty of callers over the years, plenty of conversations with people in atheist spaces, communities, and events who say, if Uncle Joe is Bible thumping Christian and he just is not smart enough to get the philosophical arguments, so just let him. That I feel that it sounds like you're saying and agree with me that that's infantilizing, right? To decide to not have a conversation with somebody because you think that they can't handle it without giving them any chance to be a part of that decision, is toxic. But is that what you were saying?
Basically, yeah. Though ironically, a lot of times people will say the reverse. The same with my opinion. They'll say that it's infantilizing to make the decision to deconvert them. But like, I think it's actually more infantilizing to believe that they can't defend their opinion if it was a good opinion. So
Yeah.
that's part of where I think it's the case of toxic skepticism, because you can make these same arguments either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Elliot.
No, I would just agree and say I think there is a problem whenever we, without the interlocutor's input, right, are coming to that conclusion that they aren't capable of handling it. That's that. What's the term? The bigotry of low expectations. It's like it's me saying, "Oh, I mean, you know, you can't do it anyway, just because you'll never be able to get it. There's no point in me even trying. I just have to take care of you, and just that is infantilization. That is, I think, a toxic mindset, and that is in the skeptic community for sure. I've seen that from people over the years. I don't think, however, it is toxic if engaging with the interlocutor, you both cooperatively come to the conclusion that the conversation has no value continuing, right? Like, and this was the story actually I was going to mention a second ago. Is I was having a chat with my mom not super long ago, and in that process we got to this place where literally she just straight up said to me, like, yeah, I don't know that I want to think about that very much, Elliot. And I was like, yeah, totally understand. Like this next thought that we're about to go into about like totally not existing forever in eternity and all that good stuff. Like, yeah, I get that's kind of a bummer, I will say, Mom, real quick though, before we just end it, I will say, I actually think there are some really good answers on the other side of that. I do think you can get to some places that are better, are these higher peaks, but you do kind of have to go through that valley of depression for a minute. And my mom just went, yeah, I'm not going to do that, Elliot. And I went, yeah, yep, totally fucking good. There is nothing wrong with that. That, I think, is a great approach, because what that does is it gives both of us the opportunity to explore a little and find our boundaries. And when we find those comfortably, we say, yeah, I'm just not going to go any further. I've hiked this far on this trail and I really enjoyed the fucking ride. And if you want to keep going, man, you keep going. I'm going to stay right here. And that's fine. That's okay. If I then turn around and say, like, yeah, well, of course you wouldn't go any further, Mom. You're a fucking idiot. It's like, well, okay, then we're getting back into the toxic stuff,
Okay, I think we're all in agreement on this one, Kina. I know I'd asked you to call in, but I for some reason I thought that you were taking the other position on that. I was like, oh my goodness, we need to. Okay, Kina, I think we're solid. Thank you for calling in, though. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, before we get to the next caller, I want to answer you. So I don't want to straw man the position. It sounds like you're saying that if people are just have their beliefs and they're, not imposing that on anybody, fine. But if they are having events where they are espousing their beliefs and think that other people should believe it too, we should challenge them, right?
That wasn't exactly what I was getting at, although I think I would say probably I'm on that side. What I was more getting at is, like, from the perspective of you and I, like, as content creators, as people that have the platform or are putting on the event, I think we should make sure that we're going through thinking about what our intention is for this event or this conversation, right? Whatever it is, the perception that people might receive or will receive or have received from it, and then an evaluation of our execution. I don't think that's something we need to be doing at the grocery store checkout line on a day-to-day basis or at like family gatherings. But if I'm going to put on an event where, let's just say, some skeptic and atheist and some non-skeptic, non-atheist, whatever, are talking, what is my purpose for this? Is my goal to just have a fun event that people show up to? I mean, cool, maybe, like, right? Is my goal to provide an opportunity for this neutral marketplace of ideas? Is my goal to elevate people in a certain community? What is that intention? And then, have I actually been able to accomplish that? That's something I think we should have a much more discussion and thought on.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we've always done a fantastic job of that. Like,
Well,
for instance,
and to be just to clarify, you're saying we as content creators.
yeah, those of us in that space of organization and platform and so forth. I mean, and the example I'll bring up here, and believe me, I mean, I'm totally open to being pushed back on this, you guys, but Kent Hovind provides no value for what you're trying to do. Go ahead and think of an example of a reason that you would bring on Kent Hovind live in person, as opposed to utilizing any other person or utilizing his past material that you can point to. What would be the purpose?
He's a lol cow.
I just think I just don't think that that's a fantastic goal for us. If that's our goal, then that's fine, and other people can do that. But that is not my goal. That is not my intention to just point and laugh at people. I'd rather change policies. I'd rather change people's minds.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that from that, right? Just humiliating people.
Well, okay, so let's draw an important line, because I think we can wind up on the same page. But let's draw a distinguishing line between pointing and laughing and giving genuine consideration to their points, right?
Yeah, sure. Those are different.
Yeah, so I would not entertain Westboro Baptist Church members who say that, that God, I don't even want to. I do not want to spend time, like in 1994, a book came out called The Bell Curve, that made an argument that there was a evidenced, full kind of argument for eugenics, that white people are intellectually superior. I don't think that having that person on a show to listen to them and genuinely challenge them is pushing the conversation forward as a creator for the audience. I think that there are some things that belong in the garbage bin of history, and we can just move forward. Yeah. And I think that speaks to the toxic skepticism. That there are, if you're still having arguments about whether or not trans people should exist in society, I think I think we need to move into the lol cow territory, right? I don't think Yeah. When I say lolcow, I do mean point and laugh. It's stupid. I think that if somebody thinks that, trans people are groomers, they should be pointed at and laughed at. But at no point would I give them a serious platform.
Now, let me be clear on this.
Yeah.
I think there is great value, for instance, in responding to or reacting to or that type of lolcow stuff, right? I think there is a lot of value in somebody, for instance, like a Dave Farina, or Vice Rhino, right? A lot of the content that they do involves bringing on ridiculous things that people have said in the past, but not bringing on those people live to espouse them newly. Right? They are finding information that is already out there. They are finding content that is already out there and taking that and using that specifically to say, here's a bad take, let me give you the good one. That I think is extremely valuable. I think there's lots of value in that.
Sure.
Setting up a new live debate with Kent Hovind. What is the value of that at the end of the day for progressing the conversation, for making tangible change in the world around us? And I don't think, honestly, it is there.
No,
like
you're having an art competition with a toddler. It's not fair.
right.
It can be fun in a punching down kind of way, but
Yeah.
you are not. If you are taking yourself seriously, you're taking it seriously, or you're seriously giving them a platform, right? What frustrates me is this feels like this is the philosophy around both sidesing things, right? If a news show goes, "Hey, we're going to talk about some new technology with GPS," but in order for the conversation to be balanced, we also brought a flat earther who's
Right.
going to disagree with that existing. Okay. Hey, we're going to talk about how civil rights has changed the United States and how we got here as a nation in terms of equity and
Right.
But to make sure that we're showing both sides of the argument, we brought a member of the KKK to represent the other side.
Right.
In that way, I think that is the philosophy around that, right? Is there are some things that I think, yeah, we've just moved entirely past. Even if I don't know, that it moves into lolcow territory for me.
Real quick.
Yeah.
The chat is saying I'm clipping a little and you're a little low. I don't know if we'll ever get this fucking audio right, but maybe I can respond in the meantime and help a little with setting those levels.
We're good. So I will adjust my gain slightly. I want to make sure that we're even here.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that changes anything. All right.
I don't know. We'll get yelled at again either way. It doesn't matter. But we'll keep trying, folks. Please keep telling us. Don't feel like you don't have to. But
yeah, no.
I think there is also this idea, and I think you kind of touched on it a second ago about kind of attempting to outsmart the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of us in this space that get this feeling of, "Ooh, if I could only talk to them, if only they heard this line,
Yeah.
I mean, Elliot, they don't realize XYZ." And I'm like, yeah. So I get that feeling, right? And I don't want to ever stop somebody in their motivation for educating people or making the world a better place, all that good stuff. I love that stuff, right? If it ever feels like I'm, pulling back on the reins a little bit there, it's because I'm trying to offer what I think is a little bit better of a path that's going to avoid some of the headache.
Yeah.
It was as simple as looking Kent Hovind in the face and just saying, "Hey man, fossils are real. Like, here's one." Like, it would have happened already, you guys. Just you coming up and being a brand new voice and face on the scene and saying that for the umpteenth time to the same fucking guy. I mean, let's just
Well,
have that conversation with
so
ourselves.
so I think I don't know. Because that's kind of the conceit of this channel. So where do we draw that line? Let's put a pin in that. We've got so many callers. The first person is somebody that last time you were on, they called in, and I asked them to call early on so we can give them more time. We have some really, really good topics across the board. So let's see if we can get through. Let's talk to our first caller in Mexico. Tirso, you are live on the show. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, gracias. Hey guys, how are you guys doing?
Hey, doing well. You were coming in real low, so I'm just going to adjust your volume here. Let's hope.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so last time you called in about the transcendental argument for the existence of God. You had a presuppositionalist argument, and you were talking about it with a level of nuance that we were really enjoying together. So let's find a jumping off point. So if somebody hasn't listened to before, they can join us. What did you want to talk about specifically today?
I think that maybe I can tie it down to hearing you guys, like maybe apply that kind of thinking that to me is like transcendental philosophy.
Okay.
And, can apply to the notion of truth and ethics, because I think that ties together the conversation with toxic skepticism, because I think sometimes, like, I remember when I became an atheist, I did so because I valued truth, right? So it was like, and I think that's true for most atheists I know, right? Like they want to know the truth and they want to question things. And so there's this notion of the value of truth. And then maybe there's the aspect of the toxicity at times when that clashes with, I don't know, with the other, like the human on the other side. So it's like, I think that would maybe an interesting topic.
I don't know if I'm understanding, but I'm happy to go forward. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Lay it out for us.
Yeah. So for me, like the transcendental philosophy has to do with the divide between the subject, the object, and the relation between them. So usually, like there's a notion of objectivity, for example, of ethics, right? Let's pick, for example, the notion of duty. So there's this duty that imposes on the subject, and so regardless of the side of the subject, there's this objectivity of, say, the duty, right? That would be like a form of realism.
I think it really depends on what you mean by objective. So if you're saying that there is a duty that is being imposed on the subject, who is imposing the duty?
Yeah, that's precisely one of the key questions, right?
Yeah, so if I impose a duty on you and say you must shower 3 times a day,
yes,
is that an objective duty that is on you because it did not come from you?
Well, that would be precisely a question for the objectivist to answer. What kind of what raises to the status of normativity, right? Of something that has the, I think it in terms of authority, right? Like what has the authority to impose onto the subject? And some would say, for example, that goodness itself already imposes it, or others may say like well-being, right? Or another can say rationality itself imposes, and
human flourishing is thrown out a lot.
Yes. For example, let's take that, right? For example, then I have a duty for human flourishing, and maybe I don't want to do human flourishing, right?
Sure.
Sorry?
Oh, and minimizing suffering. I was throwing it, but I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So, for example, we can take that as an example, right? The minimizing suffering. So that would be like something that, regardless of whether I as a subject want to or not, like the objectivity of it would be that it imposes that onto me. And so in instances where I have a desire not to do this minimizing of suffering, that objectivity would be imposed on it. So that would be like the matter of normativity, right, in ethics.
Well,
And so maybe
I don't
go
know if
ahead.
normative ethics is useful, right? I think that
Mhm.
I like we can talk about ethics in the context of when and where we are, right? The ethics of 2025 is different from the ethics of 1925, right? And we can talk about what's better and what's worse, and we can speculate on what the ethics are going to be in 2125. But I don't know how, like, I maybe I'm just confused. I
I was gonna
continue.
say I'm a little lost as
Yeah.
to where exactly we're going, and that just could be on my end.
Like,
So
yeah, are you saying that society imposes goals on the people in that society? So let's say you live in a society that values human flourishing. You may not value human flourishing, but because the society around you does, you find that it is being pushed on you to value human flourishing. Is that what you mean?
Um, Kinda, but really, my where I wanted to go is that regardless of whether we see it as a matter of descriptive aspects of what's good versus a prescriptive aspect of what should I do or what ought I do, I think the point that I wanted to highlight is that this, to me, in my view, like how I view it, arises as a relation of me as a subject to something, right? Whether that's a description of what's good and how that which is good appears to me, or how this, if we take a prescriptive route, that we don't have to, just like
Oh,
in another way,
interesting.
like how a duty imposes onto me. And so my point is this notion of the subject, which is central to our life, right? Because we are subjects.
I
So it's
so
this relation we have. Sorry.
I think I see the fundamental difference here. I think I actually have the fundamental difference here.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe that every individual is the arbiter of goodness, right? You decide what is good to you. And so you can look at a thing and determine, hey, that is good, that is bad, that is out, and you can make those subjective determinations. It sounds like you're saying that goodness exists outside of you, and that when it appears to you, you just recognize it as good instead of being the one who labels it as good. Does that sound?
No, no, that other aspect is precisely what the transcendental philosophy criticizes. I just wanted to lay out the elements, right? I'm not right now taking any position. I'm just laying out that in any analysis of things, there will be the subject, the
I'm
object
yeah.
being, sorry,
No, no.
and then the relation.
I'm just trying to steelman the position. I want to make sure that I understand where those differences are. So, would you, Tirso, take the view that things like goodness exist outside of your subjectivity, your subjective ability to label it as good?
Mm, I think that divide, that distinction, I would see it as problematic because I don't think it's either or. I don't think it can stand as either or. So I want to affirm something like a universal value, like what we may value in the objectivity, but not beyond subjectivity, because beyond subjectivity to me is meaningless, right? So we must go between two difficult lines, right? Between the
I mean,
universality of something, of truth, for example, and not relativism, right? Like
well, I
that's my
mean,
line.
yeah, it's nice to want things, but that doesn't mean that we get to have them. I really, really want access to capital T truth. I would love to be able to view things in an ontological sense without worrying about the filter of my eyes, to understand them. I would love for there to be a universal objective ethic, right? And just because I want it and would prefer it doesn't mean that it's real, true, or accessible, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I'm not, and yeah, I think that this is maybe where there's a bit of misunderstanding of my position, because I'm not saying that because you want it, it's there. I'm not even doing an analysis of evaluation, right? I'm just trying to do an analysis of what are the fundamental elements in the analysis, and then try to make what would be the analysis to be had, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
so
So
yeah.
if we're now right, you've laid out the board, right? And on this board is us, the society that we're in, the things that we label as good, and the hope that possibly goodness can exist outside of our ability to label it. So now that we have the players on the board, what do we do? Where do we go now?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way, because even society, it has no place yet, right? Because society, well, can be an object to analyze from that perspective, but it would be, I think, the object, whatever that is. It doesn't need to be this ontological object, right?
Okay.
It's a neutral object.
Sure.
The object, the subject, and then the relation. And in that way, we can have different kinds of ways it could relate, right? Like this
Yeah.
objectivity, subjectivity, subjectivism, like in a relative sense. And so the notion is, well, what are what are the preconditions for getting something like truth, right? Well, what is truth, right? So
Yeah.
if truth,
I think in talking to Elliot and I, we would both say that we lean towards the correspondence theory of truth. So if we're going to talk about truth, we would say that truth corresponds with reality. So if we can investigate it in reality, then we can determine how true it is.
okay, yeah, and in your view, like how are you defining reality?
Well, it depends on the claim, right? If we are talking about a chair and are able to investigate the chair, then we can see how much the claim about the chair corresponds to our investigation of it, right? That would be the simple kind of thing, the simple example of that. If we were to talk about something more metaphysical, like justice, it's tougher, right? How do you determine in reality whether justice exists? Well, I don't think justice actually exists. It is a concept. It's an idea that we have, but it is not like I cannot bring you distilled justice. You know, I can't measure justice in any way. So I have to view that as not a thing that actually exists, but I don't know, like a fiction that we are all engaging in. We're all agreeing as a society justice is a useful idea, and so we are all keeping that in mind as we're moving forward in the world.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mhm.
I want to push back a little bit on the notion. For example, let's not go into more difficult abstract stuff like justice. Even the chair itself,
I think the viewers would
like
probably appreciate that.
if you look at the chair, you say, well, in what way does it exist? Like, in your view, like there's something beyond your subjectivity, which is the chair, and then you relate to it, and that correspondence would be the knowledge of the chair.
I think the correspondence is related to, so you have the, what is it, the truth bearer and the truth maker, right? The truth maker being the chair, the object itself, is what actually determines whether or not the truth bearer, the statement, is correct, right? So when we go and when Eric and I get together and stand in his kitchen and look over and go, wow, that's a blue stool about the height of, 2.5 feet off the ground, about the width of this, about a weight of that. Like, that is the statement, the truth bearer, right? And then when we go investigate the chair, that is what determines whether or not that statement is true. So it's that connection between those two concepts. Does that? I'm not sure that I
understand
addressed what you were saying.
I think so. Like this distinction between the proposition itself and what the proposition contains, right? The meaning of the proposition, right? So, but I think that just pushes the question back. Like, okay, you have the truth maker, right? Well, what precisely does that mean? Does that mean that the truth is beyond the subject, like something which is true beyond the subject, and then we need to bring it into the subject? Because I think that is precisely the thing that what's called the pre-critical philosophy that transcendental philosophy criticizes, right? Like that to us looks like a naive relationship.
So I think you have to assume that existence is happening, right? I mean, can you have this conversation without existing? Can we get to a moment in time in which the recognition of a lack of correspondence between a statement and an object, can any of that happen without existence? Or do you have to fundamentally be around to make that happen?
Well, I that's what I would agree entirely. That precisely is the notion that I would say it this way: whatever is beyond the subject, whatever exists beyond the subject, is without relation to the subject, right? Otherwise, it would be a form of relationship within the subject. So whatever exists beyond it won't even have the meaning of existence, right? Because there wouldn't be even the concept of existence or the meaning of existence to relate to it.
I'm honestly having trouble considering what beyond means. I like in this context. Yeah, I don't understand what beyond means in this context. But I do want to bring this back down to a more tangible level for the people who are watching, and for me, because wow. So let's say we're talking about a chair, right? Since we're already here. I feel like there are different schools of thought on this. And the one that I come from is I have learned what a chair is by learning that definition through my lived experience, right? And so I look at a chair and I label it a chair based on everything that I've learned up until that point about chairs, right? This is why I say mostly correspondence theory, because there are a few other theories of truth here, right? And I feel like there's a belief web here that's pulled on as well. It is a chair because that's what we call it. If the problem is that we have language to describe things, then that is a problem with language, not a problem with the chair. Right? But ultimately, I do know that there is not a platonic chair. There does not need to be a perfect chair somewhere in the ether that we are all grabbing from in order to define that thing as a chair. It is a concept, and we are applying that concept in the way that we are describing the thing in front of us.
Yeah. I understand that. Let me...
Now, do you think that there is a platonic chair?
No, because that would present like a division. I'm sorry, guys, if I am complicating things. I'm a little bit frustrated with myself right now of not being able to explain it.
No worries. Tirso, what's frustrating also is we're so excited about it. We want to have 5 conversations at the same time. There are so many different ways to take it that it's frustrating to have to pick. And when you don't pick, everything gets kind of muddy. So let's give this one more shot today. And then after that, maybe we can refine, because it sounds like you have a ton of things that I would love to talk about, but let's pick one specifically to see if we can engage with it.
Okay, and is there any particular thing you want me to talk about this in the menu of options?
Oh, don't leave that up to me, buddy. Okay. So
because I wanted to talk about ethics, but it seems that because we have like a dividing paradigms,
yeah,
it may be more useful to to stick to the most basic level and build it upwards. But that's
well,
my intuition.
not even really, because if we have a fundamental difference in the way that we view the world, if we can communicate that to each other, then the people who are watching can learn more about both of those views. Right. So even if you and I, that's the great thing about having this kind of a show, is it doesn't matter necessarily that you convince the person on the other line. It's that you are providing a service to the people who are watching, who are learning about these concepts. So go for it. Like, I think the thing for me that frustrates me is in the transcendental argument, it appears built in that there is an assumption of the truth of God, and that assumption cannot be challenged. And that frustrates me.
I think that would be true of certain presuppositionalists who have that notion, like it's kind of circular question begging. But I don't think that I don't even want to go into the transcendental argument for God, because I value the kind of doing philosophy which like Kant did, and I think that can be applied to God, but can also be applied to other lots of things.
Sure.
And I value that method. I think that method is for me the best way to do philosophy as philosophy.
That sounds,
which has to do with
That sounds great. I love that. Okay, so here's a question then: is your transcendentalism Platonism?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, but I think it's more subtle than that. So that would make it more difficult, right? Because even then, what do you mean by Platonism? Because there are, as I know, I'm not an expert in Plato, but as I know, there are at least two different, very different interpretations of Plato, right? Like, are there forms living somewhere else distinctly, like it's called like a copy theory, and some say like, no, that's not what Plato is saying, right?
Right.
So it is like I think Platonism or transcendental thought per se, like in itself, negates Platonism, but I think that it does so badly. So it's like more of a bias Kant had, like he wanted to deny what we may call like rationalism, like he didn't want to affirm something rationalist, which would be like this Platonic notion of forms.
Right.
I kind of do want to go that way. I do think that I go that way.
I actually, my understanding is that Kant had the exact opposite view. He wanted to dispel the idea that we can't know, not that. Well, there are so many topics. Okay, so here's the deal. Let's see how much we can shave things down to get to a single topic, and try our best to stay on it, because I'm fucking this up too. Elliot, do you want to take a stab at it, or do you want to try and wait until we talk to Tirso again?
I apologize, but in all honesty, I haven't been super following exactly where we're attempting to go here.
No worries.
So it sounds like Tirso, that you are very interested in this stuff and are diving very deep into this, which I love. I think that is awesome. We all should be doing that. I'm not exactly positive about where we're trying to go this particular conversation. So, and that very much could just be on me. I'm completely willing to.
We are skipping like a stone on the water across a pond that is consistent. That is Tirso, but like we're not getting very deep. Tirso, god damn, I wish I could do like a program where I just sit down with you for like an hour and we just like dive in. Maybe at some point we can schedule something and I can release it as like an extra. But I don't know how we can do all of these topics today.
Yes. That's on me, Elliot. Like,
oh no, it's on both of us.
And I think these are difficult topics. Like they're very nuanced topics, so it's kind of hard. And so I don't think I'm doing the best job of it, but I'm very passionate about it, so I like it. So I hope people can it helps people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it a lot of times what happens in these spaces, and believe me, I know I do it myself all the fucking time. We're really excited and we have this roadmap in our head, and we've gone down this route like 1,000 times in our head, and so it's like it's so super clear, and it's like, yeah, you just make the turn, you just make the left up there at the stoplight, and you're just like, yeah, there's like everybody else is like, okay, there's a bunch of stoplights, I don't know which road we're turning on, and so sometimes just even though there's all of this other stuff we want to go to, just focusing on something very, very narrow can be really helpful for people, because then it's like, okay, yeah, that's the tree that I'm supposed to turn at.
And
Yes.
if I can contextualize that, Tirso, you want to talk about transcendentalism as a concept, not necessarily the transcendental argument for the existence of God. And so when you get into
Yes.
it, we both come up with examples, and as soon as we come up with an example to talk about it, it turns out that every example has 50 other things that are informing it. And so we're having this like fractal discussion that feels like we need to go 5 layers deep to answer the first question. And anyway, I was just to back you up, Elliot.
No, and again, I definitely want you to keep looking into this, and I definitely want you to call back in. Next time, maybe call in with like a specific, hey, I want to get your thoughts on X, or hey, I'd like to explain why I think this, you know, and then we'll back up for a second. We'll let you lay some groundwork and stuff and kind of take us on that journey. And then we can maybe, you know, figure some more shit out together. But I think in general, Tirso, you are on an awesome path. I mean, I think this is something that we should all be doing, you know, more regularly. I know it can be difficult and it takes a lot of time and there's a lot of big fucking words, but I do think, just to kind of go back to a little bit about what we were talking about at the beginning, I don't think anybody is incapable of this stuff. I think everybody absolutely has the potential to understand all of this. It's just a time thing. It's just like juggling, you know. At one point in my life, I did not know how to juggle. At this point in my life, after practicing, I can kind of juggle. So,
and the benefit of a show like this is we get to go over it again and again until we sharpen it wonderfully. People wonder why we're able to have these conversations the way we do, because we have the benefit of being able to have it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I've had it 30 times in the last week.
So, Tirso, thank you for calling, and
thank you.
I hope to hear from you again.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Okay. Things are going to get so much more serious from here.
Let's do it.
Let's
go.
I don't even know if I'm ready for it. Okay, so
I'm definitely not.
But so we had a caller last week who had some strong opinions about Ukraine.
Oh.
On the Russian side of things. We have a caller who wants to take the pro-Ukraine side, who called in at the beginning of this show, who's been waiting on the other line. And while he's been waiting on the other line, the first caller called back. So now we have 2 callers.
Pro-Russian.
Yeah, so now we have 2 callers on both sides of the Russia-Ukraine discussion. And I would love to bring them both on. Do you think that sounds like chaos? That sounds like chaos. I'm kind of excited.
No idea. I don't know. You're producing, so it seems like work for you. So I'm going to be just sitting in this fucking chair, you know,
fair
giggling
enough.
my ass off either way. So
I think people are going to need to be patient watching for me to figure out a way to get everything dialed in on the lower third. But first, I'm going to bring in Aethiopagan, because Aethiopagan's been waiting a long time. Hey, Aethiopagan, how's it going?
The fact that he is actually on the other line has gotten me so excited.
We missed all of that. It was clipping like crazy.
Sorry, I had the volume turned way up and it clipped really bad. Could you say that again?
I said the fact that the guy that I wanted to talk to begin with is on the other line has gotten me so excited.
Good. Good. Okay, so then you hang on. We're going to grab K-Book, and then I'll bring you right back in, okay?
Yep.
All right, popping Aethiopagan in the queue. Grabbing... in 1 week, I already forgot how to pronounce it. K-Buck?
K-Buck.
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 I'm going to do my best to remember that. K-Buck. I think that between Elliot being here and somebody else who probably has a little more information than me being here, I think you're going to have a good discussion. So I'm going to, unless there's something you want to say before I bring Aethiopagan back, I'd be happy to grab Aethiopagan.
That's good.
All right, let's do that. All right, Aethiopagan K-Buck. I want to have a good, clean fight. No shots below the belt. And if we need to hop in, we'd be happy to. Aethiopagan, you've been waiting the longest. I want you to start things off. What do you want to talk about? What's going on?
So, K-Buck, last week I listened to your call, and I got frustrated, to say the least, to a lot of the things you were saying, because I've been engaging with the Ukraine thing for a long time. I actually almost signed up to go volunteer if it wasn't for the fact that I have no military background. Basically when I was looking, I wanted to basically go and help in any way I could, but with all the things going on in my life and the fact that I have no military experience, I couldn't. So that's the context I wanted you to have for this. So in the continuing of that, I've been following the background, the history, and the conflict itself very closely. And I just wanted to go over a couple of the main talking points that you had last week, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. What evidence do you have that the United States actually did a color revolution in Ukraine?
It's accepted and known to everyone. There was a Maidan revolution in 2015, and everyone knows it.
No, that's untrue. There is no actual evidence.
That is very true. And there is, and you can go argue with Jeffrey Sachs and Brian Berletic and Aaron Mate. And it's a titanic tidal wave of evidence.
K-Buck?
It's overwhelming and it's everywhere.
K-Buck?
So what?
Aethiopagan is here to respond to you and not those people because they're not here. So let's hear what Aethiopagan has to say.
So I want to know what evidence you have of this.
Well, I mean, I have the evidence of other people that know about it. What do I mean, I'm not in Ukraine, so yeah, Eric, I have no straight hand evidence of the Maidan Revolution. But it's common knowledge and it's known to everyone. It is, you guys are way on the wrong side of this.
So let me just fill in the gaps then, because there is no evidence. The only things that we have is a phone call of diplomats talking to each other saying, oh, we really like the guy who is going against the current administration, and that's it. There's no money changing hands. There's no military expertise going to Ukraine at this point. There's no, evidence of any CIA working with any protesters. Nothing. That does not exist. The most you have is a phone call between two diplomats in Ukraine from the U.S. going, hey, we kind of like this guy. And that's it.
Again, the evidence is overwhelming. We have been arming and training Ukrainians for however long. I don't know what to say. I mean, you're just refusing any kind of reality on this situation.
I would agree with you if you were actually able to present anything.
Well, I have my sources. And Eric said, hey, don't use any of these sources. So, I mean, what do I have? I'm a guy on the internet. But all the smartest people, people agree with me, and zero people agree with you.
That is very untrue in multitudes.
It's completely true. Go argue with Jeffrey Sachs. Go argue with Jeffrey Sachs. Go argue with Brian Berletic. This is a known thing. and it's out there, and that's how it is.
So-
And some idea that we don't have all these CIA bases all over Ukraine. We do, and it's known. And we don't have all these chemical labs doing the whatever kind of
If I could,
biological research or whatever. They're all over Ukraine. And the fact is,
K-Buck,
if I could real
what's
quick,
happening is
K-Buck.
we've been
just ask
depopulating
some
Ukraine.
clarifying.
And the
Just
fact
ask some
is,
clarifying
we
question
are.
here.
So K-Buck, I'm sorry to say, but I have muted you.
Yeah.
We want to talk as well. And if you are not going to allow that, I will mute you until they can talk too. So you've had a lot to say just now, and it's understandable that we all have things that we want to say about it. I'm going to limit myself to moderation. Elliot, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted a little bit clarifying, because I don't know that I remember this call from last week or anything. I guess what I'm wondering is, like, okay, so what? Like, what if the United States has CIA bases in Ukraine and we're working with the government and stuff? Like, what are you getting at with that, I guess, is what I'm trying to figure out, K-Buck.
I brought K-Buck back. Go ahead, K-Buck.
Okay. The U.S. has been moving NATO closer and closer to Russia's border. And the thrust of this is we are trying to partition Russia. Okay? We're going to get close and close, and right now they're on their border, there are open plans.
Let's talk about
openly
that.
Talked about.
Let's talk about that claim. That is a claim.
Can I cut in real quick with that one?
Yeah.
So, how does joining NATO work?
I believe, K-Buck, that was to you. K-Buck? I do not have K-Buck muted.
Oh, wait. Am I here on now?
Yes. Hey.
Yeah, my phone. It's my first time using this phone, so it's that weird.
No worries. So Aethiopagan had a question for you in response to what you said. You said that the United States and NATO have the goal of partitioning Russia, and you were starting to list out what you believe is evidence of that. And so the claim is that the United States and NATO are seeking to partition Russia. Now, Aethiopagan had a question for you about NATO in order to explore that idea. Go ahead, Aethiopagan. Could you ask that again?
How does joining NATO work, K-Buck?
They're well, that's on a few different levels. Outwardly, they're invited to join, and then they join. Inwardly, they're influenced to join by members of Western intelligence and all this kind of stuff, and they're paid off, and that's a known thing, and it's not surprising to anyone.
Okay. So there's no other reasons why any country would want to join NATO other than CIA interference?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay. Why do you think, for example, Finland just joined NATO?
They were pressured into it.
You don't think it had anything to do with the fact that Russia has invaded countless countries, well, not countless, 3 or 4 different countries over the last 20 years around Russia?
We have 800 military bases around the world. There's no comparing what Russia does to what we do.
Hold on.
There's no comparison.
I do just want to. How does what you just said answer the question? I'm genuinely wondering how those two connect. Is it a question of we're doing worse, so it's justified? And if that's the case, are you tentatively agreeing with Aethiopagan?
I don't think that we have any leg to stand on criticizing Russia about supposedly invading a country, which
so
we have evidence of Ukraine.
Yeah, so there is a fallacy called the argument from hypocrisy, right? And pointing out hypocrisy is sure, absolutely do that, but hypocrisy does not make what is being said wrong, right? The example I normally give is my dad discovered that I was smoking cigarettes when I was 17. And my dad was a pack a day smoker. He said, Eric,
Yeah,
those are
look,
going to kill you.
uh,
And I could call him a hypocrite, but he's not wrong. So you pointing out that hypocrisy, even if it's true,
yeah,
doesn't
but
make it
you
wrong.
wait a second here. We got to wait a second. We've been overthrowing governments since Korea.
Oh, so
Okay?
if we're
Or
saying we
trying
as
to.
the United States,
Trying to.
right? The United
So
States has been.
we have a 70-year history of overthrowing governments. Russia should in no way be surprised that we're going after them, overthrowing Ukraine. That's our history. That's what we do.
Okay.
I guess I'm still confused, K-Buck. And maybe it's just because we haven't gotten to anything explicit here, I guess, is my concern. So
well-
let me try and help, at least with my own clarification and understanding. It sounds to me like what you're saying is more countries being a part of NATO is bad. Am I wrong on that? Or is that your position?
NATO should be dissolved.
Okay, so you
That's my
don't
position.
think countries should be in NATO. Okay, so why?
Oh God!
What is the reasoning for that?
There's no reason for NATO.
So the only reason to disband it is that there's no
reason for it.
purpose for it.
Well, NATO, I mean, they committed all kinds of war crimes against Libya, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq,
So
Yugoslavia, all in the Balkans. They're a
So it's a
criminal
bad
organization that should be
It's done
disbanded.
bad things.
okay,
is
so
what you're saying.
yeah, so the answer that you gave at first is there's no reason that it's around,
Right.
and now you've changed your answer to be they exist as a criminal organization.
And by the way, they weren't in Iraq.
That's
So I just
Yeah,
there's
they're
no-
supposed to
that's
say,
what you're
they're
getting
supposed to
at,
say
then I
things.
understand more,
Criminal
K-Buck.
organizations should
Well,
not be around. That's the same thing.
we are
What are you talking about?
okay. We are skipping around a lot here. I want to try and bring.
I don't think so.
I want to.
If you
I
see
will
it,
explain
you'll see
it, K-Buck. I will explain it. Right. There is a concept called a Mott and Bailey argument. Right. Where you bring up a topic and then when you get called out on it, you retreat to something else that is easier to defend instead of defending the thing that you said. Right.
I have not done that at
Okay,
all.
so-
If you go
so
back and watch this, I haven't done it.
Well, I will tell you exactly when it happened, right? When Aethiopagan asked you about Aethiopagan, did you say Poland?
Finland.
Finland.
Was the last,
Thank you.
yeah.
Right. So when Aethiopagan asked why Finland joined NATO, your response was the United States does atrocities. Why are we expecting different? That is an entirely different thing that you retreated to, so that you did not respond to that first thing. It feels to me like you are retreating from the topic to a different one. And that makes it very difficult for us to have a meaningful dialogue. So I'm going to, as a moderator, okay, right. So that would be the Mott and the Bailey. So let's go back to the why Finland joined NATO. Aethiopagan, can you tee us up one more time with that question?
Sure.
Yeah.
So just to fill in a little bit, Finland and Sweden joined NATO very recently because of the invasion of Ukraine. That was their stated reason, because they, up until this point, have been very neutral on the subject of NATO. They don't want to piss off Russia. They didn't want to piss off NATO by joining either side. But with the invasion of Georgia, with the invasion of Ukraine, twice, because you had the Crimean invasion and then the second invasion in 2020, you had these things all happen, and Finland was forced because of Russia's actions to join NATO. So why do you think that was?
Aethiopagan, you asked two questions, and I think it would be reasonable.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Why do you think Finland joined NATO?
Well, I just want to clarify, because K-Buck, I want to give you the, like, do you, before you answer that, I do just want to, Aethiopagan said that Russia invaded several of these countries. He listed them out. Do you dispute that?
I mean, I dispute all of it, really.
Okay, so
Every single bit of
so
it.
Aethiopagan, the question now is, do you want to follow this into talking about whether, right, because you just brought up all of these other invasions, so now you need to make a choice between whether you're going to talk about these other invasions or you're going to stick with the Finland joining NATO part.
I'm going to stick with why do you think that Finland joined NATO?
Okay, so can you tee us up one more time? And honestly, this is for me because I'm just having trouble following. I want to make sure that I follow too.
So here's I'll try to tee this up as succinctly as possible. NATO has been a defensive alliance in the beginning.
Total bullshit. That's total bullshit.
Okay.
To counter Russian aggression in the regions around them during the USSR days.
Those are all Fox talking points.
Fox? What are you talking about?
Whatever right-wing nutty.
I'm a left-wing fanatic, my friend. Don't try to go down that route with me.
I'm far more left than you, pal.
Okay.
This is
I don't support
Elliot,
the Nazis in Ukraine.
Elliot,
I don't support the Nazis in Ukraine.
Okay. Wait, Eric. Let me go on that point real quick.
You go for it.
What percentage of Nazis were in the Ukrainian parliament during the Russian invasion?
I mean, come on. What kind of question is that?
What percentage of parliament did the Nazi Party control in Ukraine during the Russian invasion? It's a very simple question.
They have an active division that open Nazis in their military.
No.
You think you got a smart question? It's a super dumb question.
Okay.
That's a super dumb question.
Stop.
K-Buck.
I have muted them both. Isn't that awesome?
I'm a little.
Yeah. So
I'm confused.
Yeah, right. We have definitely kind of gone abroad, and what's frustrating is you need to be able to bring in 5 other things to evidence one thing, but when you can't agree on even those, you need to take it further and further and further back. Mm-hmm. I think that K-Buck, I understand you have strong opinions. Saying your opinion is dumb is not useful. It's not useful to us who are listening, wanting to learn, and it's not useful in showing that you are right. It's just name calling. So I want you to have the chance to respond to Aethiopagan, and I want it to be substantive, because saying that's dumb is not very useful. So I'm going to unmute them both unless, and by the way, I'm more left than you is a weird thing. Elliot, I don't know about you, but I felt like I needed to grab the ruler, right? It definitely felt like a whose is bigger. And so I definitely,
also, it's a little, I mean, I don't talk about politics a lot online. And often because I'm actively, supporting or representing nonprofits, right? I'm not doing that today. I'm not a representative of any nonprofits or anything. But I have been very interested to see the continuing fluctuations of viewpoints and groupings in terms of the left, right, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal perspectives. It's been fascinating to me, considering the fact that I think I could be wrong on this, you guys. Please yell at me if I'm wrong. But my entire life, supporting NATO has been a leftist ideal. My entire life, that has been part of that. So I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. But that is odd to me that somebody would be so in support of the Russian government and against NATO and then be very proudly raising a flag for leftism or liberalism or non-right-wing conservative ideologies. So it's fascinating.
It is. I'm going to bring them both back. And Elliot, would you like K-Buck to respond to that, or
of
do we
course,
want
if
to
he
see
wants,
them?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
So,
or otherwise, y'all can just keep going.
no, so
back and forth,
I'm
so.
going to bring them both back. Atheopagan, hang with.
I'm on?
Yeah, you're both on. I would like for K-Buck. Elliot says something. I want you to have the chance to respond. Do you? Is it different for you? Elliot was saying that his entire life supporting NATO has been a left-wing thing, and so saying
To me, NATO's totally right wing. It's far right wing.
interesting.
What is the characteristics about it that make you come to that conclusion?
It's just a military arm of the U.S. government.
Okay, so Atheopagan, I don't even need you to hop in on this one. No, it's not. Yeah, the U.S. the U.S. military does a lot of fucked up things. I agree.
Sure.
And the U.S. military, in any trade agreements that it has with other countries, has an oversized say in things, and they put them. But what you are saying is kind of shorthand, right? I think it would be more realistic to say you believe that NATO is too beholden to what the United States' interests are. Would that be a better way of saying that?
They're almost totally controlled by the U.S.
Okay, so almost totally controlled is different than an arm of the U.S. government, right? So now we're moving away from these extremes.
No, it's really the same thing.
No,
it's really the same thing.
Okay.
I feel like I'm talking to a creationist.
I think
Ariel Pathan, I feel like I'm talking to, I don't know, some kind of somebody so soaked in propaganda.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we can move forward productively. Elliot, what are your thoughts?
No, it's not terribly important, and it honestly won't help progress the conversation. But like inherently, a military, for instance, because when I asked what was the reason that you came to this conclusion about NATO being right wing, the first thing that you said was that it's basically an arm of the United States military. And my response to that, and again, it's not terribly important. We're not going to make any progress with this, but like a military isn't inherently a right wing or conservative thing, right? It kind of really depends on the structure and the actions of that military unit, right? So like just because let's just say that NATO is actually a division of the United States military. Like still I would just argue that in and of itself is not a good reason to make the conclusion that NATO is right wing. Like NATO's policies being XYZ, right? Or NATO's actions, despite whatever their policies are, right, being XYZ. Like that, to me, would be a better way to make the determination about whether or not NATO is right wing. Now, I would argue if we go that methodology, I just don't think it shakes out on the right-hand side as much, right? I think it's pretty clearly going to shake out on the side of liberalism, leftism, whatever you want to use as a terminology.
Liberalism is not left. It is flat out not left.
I mean, sure. I would just say, like, again, I'm not the person that's saying that, just to be clear. That would be political scientists for decades. So that's fine. It's not, we can disagree on whether or not those people are accurate in their field of study and their expertise. I mean, we sure can. But
let me say a couple things to kind of explain my mindset, if I may.
Sure.
What is that popping sound? There's a thumping sound, and I don't know whose line it's coming from. But my ADHD is making it very difficult for me to focus on the content.
If I may explain my position just a little bit, my mindset might enlighten things a little bit.
Sure. Let's take it in small bites. But
okay,
go ahead.
Okay. At one time, I thought a lot like you guys. I did. And I have a friend that's a pretty sharp cookie. And are we still on?
Yep. Oh yeah. We're listening.
I was getting weird noises. And he's written books and he travels around the world giving speeches, and I felt pretty lucky to have him as a friend. And so anyway, long story short, I'm at his house and something comes on TV and he's like, hey, let's watch this. And I'm there with his wife, and it's a Chomsky video. Very new to me. I thought I was on the left. Very new to me. And I'm watching Chomsky. And I remember looking at my friends thinking, wow, these guys are anti-American and they're all this dumb stuff. That's the dumb stuff I used to think. Okay?
That's
watch Chomsky.
I do just want to point out that, like, I also had that viewpoint, and that was not a leftist viewpoint. That was a conservative viewpoint to say, oh, these people are anti-American. That was definitely coming from the right.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, this was years ago, so I'm trying to work you through it.
Yeah, but
I thought I was leftist at the time.
Okay.
I didn't realize that I wasn't.
Yeah, but that, it just, in fairness, like, I know that both you and Eric had that shift in your life. I never have. I was always I was raised in the Bible Belt in deeply red state Tennessee as the only person in my class, in my social group, that was on the left or liberal or whatever terminology you want to use.
I was born in Tennessee.
I've always been on the same side. There are people that are further in both directions than me, of course.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just want to see, is the goal of this to say one is left and one is right? And are we using?
Yeah, I don't get what the point of this is.
Are we using liberalism and leftism and conservatism and all of that as shorthand for right and wrong, or true and not true?
No, I'm not. I knew we would go down this unproductive route, which is why, honestly, I shouldn't have said the thing to begin with about liberal and NATO and stuff. But like, yeah, I just think currently we're in a really interesting space in the United States, political groupings wise, that most of the other world really isn't having this kind of moment right now. But for some reason, it very much seems to me a lot of the standard kind of categorizations and the standard metrics that we have been using in the past to determine what is left, liberal, right, conservative, whatever, right? Those are flip-flopping. And I just want people to be clear on the history of it, right? That's all.
Totally understood. I think that is a conversation that deserves its own time.
It's not going to help us here.
No. So let me take this back, and I'm going to toss the ball over to somebody who's been very, very quiet for a while. Atheopagan, what's on your mind? What's going on?
So I guess my main point that I wanted to try to drive with the last two, so there's an A and B to this.
Okay.
Is that A, NATO does not coerce anyone. In fact, I think that Russia does more to coerce people into NATO than anyone else, because they are consistently attacking and trying to. I mean, look at Georgia right now with how they're infiltrating the parliament over there after they had done an invasion. NATO only allows people who are stable and able to join NATO in a defensive alliance against aggression. That's what they've always been for, and that's what they have done.
It sounds like, is that the topic that we're going on? First off, because oh my goodness, I got really loud for a second.
Yeah,
that's not me.
I think that might be K-Buck. K-Buck, I muted you. It sounded like you were using the ice machine, and if that's the case, it came in really, really loud. So I didn't mute you out of anger, but I wanted to make sure Atheopagan could be heard. Atheopagan, so you are bringing up that you believe that NATO was created by consenting countries, not out of coercion, and that their goal is what?
It's a defensive alliance. That's its main goal.
And I believe I'm trying to steelman K-Buck the best that I can. I believe that K-Buck is saying that the goal of NATO is to partition Russia.
Right. Now, which goes against, really quick to go, which is kind of weird because NATO was open to Russia joining them in the 90s.
Okay.
And the only reason why they were denied is because Putin at the time said, no, you need to fast track me. I don't need to go through the process. And NATO went, no, you can't do that. And Putin got to stick up his ass over it.
Okay. So here's the thing is I know you had an A and B.
Yeah.
And I think that us talking about what the goal of NATO is one path we can go down, and the other path is B. So,
I want to bring it back to Ukraine, yeah.
Okay, so I do want to make sure I'm not strawmanning K-Buck, but so K-Buck, I'm going to bring you back. Please, no ice machine. Are you still there? K-Buck, are you still there, buddy?
I'm trying.
Okay. No, you're good. I can hear you now. So
it's my first time using this phone, so it's doing all kinds of dumb stuff.
No worries. So was I accurately representing your viewpoint there? That that you believe that NATO's express goal is to partition Russia.
Their express goal?
Yeah. What they're there
for. Doing right now, but it's not the totality of their being.
Okay, so at the beginning, you said that is what NATO is. So
it's what it's doing. It's what it's doing right now. Right. The reason.
So
I mean, come on, you're trying to parse words with me.
Well, no, K-Buck, I'm not trying to parse words. Hold on, K-Buck, I'm not trying to parse words. Hold on. What I'm doing is I'm pointing out ways that what you're bringing into this is not the best version of the discussion, right? And so I'm trying to give you the tools to give better arguments later, and I'm trying to point out where flaws are so that you can shore them up, right? If you believe the truth of the claim, then me saying, hey, here was a weak version of that getting brought up, then that should not be offensive, right? There are a couple of things that you've done so far that I'm bringing up here. One of them was name calling. Another was a Mott and Bailey argument. Another was overstating or hyperbolizing the facts. Right. So like when you said NATO exists to partition Russia, right? We pushed back, and that's not us being semantic, right? We're meeting you where you are with what you're saying. And so what you're saying, we're taking that as truth. We're not reading between the lines, right? Do you understand why we're pushing back like this?
I mean, I understand part of it. I think part of you is pushing back, and you don't understand why.
Okay, that's infantilizing a little bit. That definitely feels weird. I'm an adult who has.
Well, let's just go on the record. If we go on my last two calls, I've spoken very little, and I've listened a whole lot.
Okay, so when you
definitely spoken a lot today.
Well, I just want to I just said that I'm an adult who's making choices and decisions and bringing his view up. Because you said that I don't know why I'm saying things. And then your response was, I listened to the last few calls and you listened a lot and I did a lot of the talking. And I don't know how those are related. I don't understand the connection there. Hey, Ethiopagan.
Yep.
K-Buck dropped out.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if he hung up or if there's a problem with his new phone, but I would like you and Elliot to have a chance to, maybe we can debrief a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, part of me is a little bit confused about K-Buck's position, and maybe that's just the theme today for me. I'm just confused. But yeah, again, my entire life, I have been somebody that has been interested in political discussions, at least in some capacity, right? International relations of some capacity, right? And again, could be completely misunderstanding. Could have been an absolute dipshit my entire life. But my understanding was always that the invention of NATO to begin with and the continued sustaining of this organization was something that was very much as a part of the whole left in general kind of conception of how government should work. Now, I could just be wrong on that, you guys. That's
So
highly
what I
possible.
would say on that is that there would be, for example, and I don't consider them on the left, but Marxist-Leninists were very against NATO. I would suspect that there's a lot of anarchists that are against NATO.
and
I would think that's all on the left.
Well, and from my viewpoint, as a Christian kid, NATO was an example of the one world government, which was kind of prophesied in the Book of Revelations.
Just on that left side.
Well, no. So Atheopagans giving left examples of people who would be against it, like anarchists.
No, I don't disagree that there are people on the left that would disagree, but with the organization itself or the creation or their actions. But it is about the principles of the reasonings behind the creation of it, and those are things that are not on the conservative side, politically speaking.
And even with that, right? Like, so let's take that. Cool.
Sure.
Now, how do we move forward and have discussions about what is going on in Ukraine?
So what I would say is that K-Buck did point out one reason why Russia said they were invading Ukraine. But when Putin did a speech before the invasion, he laid out other reasons as well. And one of the major reasons that he was talking about was the recreation of the great Russian Empire. That this was a blood and soil thing, that he is trying to forcefully, if not coerce, the Slavic peoples to rejoin the great Russian Empire. He said this flat out. This isn't he can, and once you say that, there's no going back. This is the reason why they're invading, is to regain control of the empire they once had.
And I would say that for me personally, I think one of the reasons why it should be something that if you care about governments running for the people, if you care about human rights, if you care about just the general concept of people being able to be secure and protected by their government, just those kind of things, I would argue that since about the 50s, as a nation, as a world, we have decided internationally it's not cool for one country to just go take another country's land. Now, things still happen, don't get me wrong, right? But in general, since World War II ended, the idea of a single country being able to just walk in to another territory and say, this is mine now, and this is how we're doing shit, that's been something we've generally frowned upon. I think that's good. I think we shouldn't want that for the world. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that it's not since World War II. That is the heart of colonialism. And that has been viewed as a moral good by Western, at least, society for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, I was saying since World War II is when we made the switch.
Oh, away from
that thought.
I think that I think it's closer to the 70s.
Right. That's fine. That's fine. I'll take that.
Yeah, but regardless, every step I take feels like a step further afield and away
Yeah.
from
I know.
what needs to be talked about. So Aethiopagan, you've been very
Yep.
patient. I want you to have the chance to say your piece.
My piece is that the revolution of dignity, which is what happened back in 2014, was not engaged with by the United States. They ousted a Russian puppet that had decided that protesting was going to be illegal and had fired on protesters, and that's why Ukraine turned away from Russia, because Russia was pushing in.
Is that Poroshenko? Am I remembering wrong?
Yeah, Poroshenko. Yep, you got it right.
Yeah, I thought so.
There were so many bad talking points that K-Buck had last week that I wanted to engage with. Unfortunately, I just felt like I was chasing him around on each topic.
It felt like the topic did move a lot, you know, and even like when you would bring things up that you felt were supporting it, he disagreed on it. And so that meant that we needed to shift the conversation then to see where there's any common ground there. And it just feels like we've moved very far afield. So I know that I said this at the beginning, not today, but at the beginning of, you know, bringing in these kind of bigger political conversations. I'm working on the skill set, and I know I don't have it right now. And I also fear that as someone with a platform, I'm going to do more harm than good. I really, really, really want to continue this conversation when Tori is on, because Tori is actually much better at this.
Yeah, I'll call back then.
That sounds good. Aethiopagan, thank you for calling today, though.
Of course.
All right, take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. I do think, just as a final note on this, I guess, and why I have a personal interest in what's going on between Ukraine and Russia right now, is because I do think that the outcomes of that situation will be pointed to by other actors in the international community as a way to justify their decisions. And if the way that it turns out is that the international community basically throws their hands up and says, I guess Ukraine's part of Russia now, I'm worried that what we'll see in the next decades are more of the types of activities that were pre-World War II, where we have different nation states asserting their military influence and using that to take other people's land. So that's why I personally am very interested in this. I do think the ramifications for how this plays out will have long-term effects.
Sure.
And I think that was true back in 2014 when the whole Crimea situation happened. I think that was something that had we resolved that differently as a community internationally, things would be different now in a lot of situations.
I don't know.
But
I don't think so, honestly.
That's fair.
I think the systemic issue is imperialism. And I think that
I don't disagree.
Yeah, and ultimately, like if we're hoping for different outcomes, I think we need to address imperialism.
Well, with that, because
I just want to make sure that I clarify.
Yeah, please,
right? The clarifying it. I think any country large enough is not able to advocate for the wants and needs of its people because the people become too diverse. I think that a large enough country is a bad thing because
too large.
Well, the wars get too big, if anything, right?
Sure.
If the U.S. tomorrow broke into 50 different countries and Illinois went to war with Texas, the fallout would be less, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe than like Russia and United States going on full-on war. Like probably. Right. I grant that.
And I think that what is rooted in there is a value system around imperialism, around taking on this kind of paternalistic, you don't know well enough for yourself, so I'm going to take care of you for you. And Russia is doing it, and the United States has done that for a long time. And if what I say coincides with what the United States is saying, I'm not supporting the United States. We happen to coincide in views, but I have the same view about United States imperialism. And so calling out imperialist expansion that Russia is doing is in no way denigrated by the fact that the United States has done it, or that we happen to coincide on that conclusion.
Yeah.
Does that,
and
does that read?
Yeah. No, I think this is why I think we are on pretty much the same page. Maybe if I reframe a little bit, I think we might see that agreement a little bit more, which is what I was talking about with Crimea was that I felt like, and still do, I feel like the response from the international community was not one of an explicit denunciation of imperialist motives and tactics. And instead, what we did was, at the very least, we didn't say that it's bad. We didn't say that it was a thing that we don't like. We may not have like actively been super excited and going like, hey, good on you, Russia, take that land, you know? But what we did was we said that those motivations of old world imperialism, those types of behaviors and tactics from a nation on the international stage, those are still viable. And I think had we responded with a much stronger pushback of those tactics and those motivations, I think we would have seen a little bit less of that in the coming decade. Now, do I know for sure? No, of course not. But I would agree in large part with the idea that empire building is something that has been at the root of the problems in terms of how the international community plays with each other, right? And that is something, again, I think in large part we have not fully, but at least started to make a clear path away from. And fine, maybe not the 50s, since the 70s, I'll take that. But for the last 50 fucking years,
well,
that's...
So probably not, actually. When you bring it in that context, you're even more wrong. I'm sorry, Elliot. But so it's not just the 70s, because if you want to talk about imperialist expansion, we can bring out Desert Storm, and we can bring out Afghanistan and Iraq as proxy wars as well, right? And if not as proxy wars, at least as expansion in order to what? Destabilize the government so that we can get what we wanted out of them. Like, either way, I
don't think that's the same thing that we're talking about. I don't think. I think what you're talking about is still not a good thing.
It still falls under imperialism, though. Both of those are still that.
I wouldn't disagree necessarily. I think we could probably parse out some stuff that would be worthwhile. But let's just, for the sake of it, let's just say, yeah, sure. But like at the very least, right? Okay, let's put it like this: had the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, had those happened in the 1820s, the point would have been to take the land from everybody. Not to set up an American base, not to have massive influence in the government. The point would be, this is ours. Fuck you. At the very least, the fact that we have made that shift on the international stage writ large, that's a good thing, right? When the United Kingdom goes around and sails their massive navy all over the world these days, yeah, sure. Are they still doing some fucked up shit? Absolutely, guys. Like, I'm not turning a blind eye to any of that, right? But I am saying, in the years past, the goal was find a person, put chains on them, take them back to your place. We're not doing that in mass anymore. That's good.
But we are.
No, we're not. No, we are not. That is not the case. It is hyperbolic, man.
Okay.
That is not how we engage when we for instance, Canada right now. Canada.
Okay. Got it. Hold on a second.
Okay. Yeah.
And we do have another caller.
Let's go to them. Let's go to them.
So let me clarify, and then we'll go forward. And this might be something that people will want to call about later. But the first thought in my head is that people are getting disappeared and getting sent without without the ability to defend themselves or any outright charges that are United States citizens. And so you might define that as not imperialism. But I think that when imperialism turns inward on its own people in order to shore up dissent, that kind of imperialism is called fascism.
And it's bad. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. It's happening. It's real. It's bad.
But I also view that as imperialism. I think
that's fine.
Yeah, I think that we take part in lying to ourselves so that we can sleep at night. But I don't think that things are fixed. They might be better, hopefully. I hope. Oh God, I would hope. But I don't think that they're fixed.
That's what I'm trying to say. I agree. It's not, we should not be sitting on our hands, resting on our laurels saying, well, it's better than it was in the 50s. Thank fucking God. Everything's good. No, of course not. But again, for instance, technically, the international slave trade has been abolished. Actually, in reality, there are millions of people that are trafficked all over the world, and it happens right in front of us, okay? The United States, for instance, legally allowed sex trafficking of minors and almost 10,000 children in the last 10 years. Legally, they said that. So, like, this stuff still happens, and it is still bad, and we still have lots to do, but let us all recognize and celebrate that the world that we live in is not the one of the 1800s, where literally every other weekend new empires were being, right? Like, that's progress. That is good.
Actually, no. So Elliot, I love you, but I disagree. Is sharecropping slavery?
Sure. I'm not against taking that for this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that being considered slavery.
Okay.
I don't think that's a problem.
We have absolutely reconverted this country into sharecropping. I think that the way that people are treated I think that our current setup is more of a techno-feudalism, is sharecropping. And if sharecropping is slavery, then there is a type of slavery that is absolutely happening here in the U.S. And I promised I would not going to say that, wasn't going to say that or things like that on the air. So with that, I'm moving on to the topic before I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Stephen in Pennsylvania. Hey.
Okay. Goodness me.
You waited the entire time through the shitstorm that happened. You deserve a little bit of time on the air. You wanted to call in about the topic of the show, which is toxic skepticism. Let's hear it.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. So what you just did was something that you said at the beginning about maneuvering just to win the argument, which is exactly what you just did to Elliot by the techno-feudalism comment. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with the point.
No, Stephen. That's okay. Be on my side. That's right. We'll take it. We'll take the victory.
So the reason I brought it up is because I felt so called out that when I was watching this video that was kind of representing skepticism, I paused it. I ran upstairs. I was like, V, let me tell you about this thing, because I think that's me. I think I've absolutely focused on being right more than I have on getting the result that I want. So that could be true. My defense, I think I was right. But I think that is absolutely evidence of the kind of toxic skepticism that we're talking about. So good call. I'm not going to argue with you. But go ahead.
It's okay. We still love you. So what I was going to say, I had called in about, and initially I was going to talk about when you use toxic skepticism, or anytime you're skeptical. I feel like the toxicity comes into play if your skepticism is hurting people. However, after listening to Atheopagan and K-Buck, there's also a point about what fuels your skepticism is where you source your information. So, Atheopagan referred to a lot of what K-Buck was saying as talking points. Now, I've missed the last few weeks because I've had other things to do. It's nothing personal, so I haven't heard K-Buck before.
No worries.
But
you're good.
Those talking points, and even listening to your discussion about NATO and that it always was a leftist thing or what have you, when I was younger, it was a both sides thing. It was not left or right. It was anti-communism. And I grew up during the Cold War. So NATO to me was an anti-communist thing. And if you were American, you were against all of anything the communists were doing. And when we made up NATO, the Soviets came up with the Warsaw Pact, and it was a whole thing.
So can I ask you about that? Because you lived through that and I did not. So what I have is secondhand. But what I have that I reach for historically, and this might be just me doing this toxic skepticism thing, but I really do want to know the during the Cold War, right, and early on the kind of anti-Soviet sentiment. What was his name? Who McCarthy, right?
Oh, McCarthy, yeah.
Right. So weren't the McCarthy
House Un-American Act?
Right.
Well, yeah. That's a little before my time, but okay.
No, but it is still in that period, right? That kind of Cold War anti-Soviet.
Mm-hmm.
So when
anti-communism, yeah.
So when I think of left versus right, one party versus the other, I think of the examples that people use when they talk about how McCarthyism was weaponized against political opponents. And it appeared to me like McCarthyism was largely weaponized against progressive folks.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So
and calling them communists, even if they weren't. There were real communists that got caught up in that, but you're absolutely right. LGBT people got caught up. There was a lot of stuff going on with McCarthy. So yeah, I would agree.
So if that's the case, then isn't that evidence that it is politicized that way? There was definitely a left and a right there?
Well, you're talking about two different things.
I probably am.
I think I can explain it. So, yes, it was weaponized against progressives, but it was a label that was applied to them because the whole country, left and right, was against communism as a reflection of Soviet ideas. And communism, went back to the 1920s in the United States as people joining the Communist Party and so on and so forth. And that's what came out in the McCarthy era, were people who may have joined the Communist Party at some point in their past, even if they weren't current communists. But the way it was weaponized was that by calling you a communist, we were othering you as a progressive. We could do that. We could do it against to your point, any political enemy, any political adversary, by labeling them communist, by labeling them later on socialist was a big word. Nobody knows what socialism means, but if you call them that, we know it's bad because that's a reflection of communist ideology again. That is how it was weaponized. It didn't necessarily have anything to do with what the actual definition was. It was the way the public reacted to those words.
Yeah, and I think that there's a larger conversation we've got to have here, and I don't know if we have the time for it. But as an example, in the live chat, Word Eater said, McCarthyism was presented as anti-communism when it was really just a right-wing power grab meant to push right-wing authoritarianism.
Sure, I can agree with that too.
Okay, then it definitely...
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think I might just be too burned out. That feels like that is a contradiction. Elliot, I don't know.
What's the contradiction you think you're seeing?
Sure. So I believe our caller, Stephen, who I so rudely haven't even done a lower third for yet. Stephen, I apologize.
That's okay.
Stephen was saying that anti-communist or anti-socialist rhetoric was something that was used on all sides, that it was an American thing, not a right-wing thing. And so examples that I give of it being a right-wing thing and then Stephen agreeing confuses me.
So I think there's the broader understanding of being anti-communist or pushing back against Soviet aggression and expansion.
Mm-hmm.
That is a separate thing from the underneath that thing, which is the McCarthyism, right? McCarthyism is a subcategory of that. It's a branding of that. And that could be right wing or exclusively conservative, authoritarian, however you want to label that, right? And not mean that the whole understanding of being anti-communist at the time was on all sides. Does that make sense?
I think so. Stephen, do you agree with Elliot?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think what I would add to that is that I forgot already. There was something that was really good that I was going to say.
No, that's okay.
It is the branding. It is the. Oh, now I remember. You have to remember that we're the three of us. I think we could call ourselves political nerds, and we're a little more informed. And when you brand things like the word communism or socialism to your political cause, you're also appealing to low information voters who are looking at what McCarthy was doing and saying, yeah, he's anti-communist, so that's right. It's okay that he's doing that. Now I have to go back to what I was doing because I don't care about it that much, and I'm not watching the McCarthy hearings. That's all I'm getting. Where the people who are more informed actually realize what's really going on, which is what you said, pushing right authoritarianism, which has nothing necessarily to do with communism. But again, it was using the word as a hot button.
Yeah.
Versus really what it means. And yeah, I agree with what Elliot said, but I always agree with Elliot, so that's okay.
So I appreciate the distinction. I wish we had more time to talk about toxic skepticism, especially because it's just so freaking relevant. But Stephen, I do really value what you did say, though, and so I'm still grateful for the call and for you waiting for as long as you did. I do. My toxic skepticism is pushing me to push back on you just one more time. And I do just want to clarify. I'm not a political nerd. If any of this is evidence, I'm a political nitwit, but I'm trying. If I happen to be right, I still don't think I'm in the Eric is a mind to follow as much as Eric deserves a cookie and a head pat. But I'm working on it, and we'll go from there. Stephen, Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Take care, boys.
Take care.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, definitely. Call us back.
What a sweet guy. Oh my goodness.
Very nice.
I love our colors. You know what I really like? I really like that among the viewers and the callers to the show, even the people who disagree recognize that the conceit of this show is one that seeks to understand and validate the humanity in the other person. And so even if I so strongly disagree with somebody, it's not a personal thing, and they recognize it and they appreciate it. And I feel like that has been a through line. There were other callers who came and went who we didn't get to talk to. And I love that. I feel like that is the environment that I want to have these conversations in. Let's have these hot button conversations where we can strongly disagree with the conclusions while not taking for granted the humanity in the other person.
I think that's the way you make more progress in these difficult conversations.
I agree.
I think
it doesn't get the views and the clicks, but I feel like it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's not the catharsis and fun that everybody often enjoys, but I asked this question a while ago to some friends of mine, and I think it applies here too in a certain capacity. But we were having the discussion about the death penalty and whether or not that was a good thing. And one of the things that got brought up was the feeling inside of some people who have been wronged, right? They see that person that murdered their loved one, And inside of them, they say the right thing is for that person to also lose their life. And I understood where my friends were coming from, and they said, Elliot, I think we're doing a disservice.
Retributive justice.
If we don't allow those people to have that catharsis in that way, right? I think we're doing a disservice to them. And I said, I understand that feeling. And my only response is that something as a society we should prop up and tell people that this is the right way to live your life? And I think that's also true in these types of conversations. It feels so fucking good to bring on Kent Hovind and yell at him and tell him he's a dipshit and that he's a wife beater and that he's a federal criminal and list out his federal ID number 1,000 times. It feels so good. I get that, you guys. But the question I think we should all ask ourselves, especially if we are the ones with the platform, if we are the ones organizing the events, we are the ones taking the calls, the question is that really a feeling and a behavior that we should perpetuate as a society and in ourselves?
My lizard brain says yes.
Of course. Hell yeah, man. I want to wake up and fuck shit up.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. But
yeah, I
probably
got you. The super ego that seeks to moderate says, let's put a lid on that. I want to hop into this, the after show. Who knows what kind of fireworks are going to go on down there. But I also want to read the super chat. So let's read the super chat. Q. Thank you, Q. Sent $5. Says, happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Another great Sunday show. Put this toward treats for Moko, the Odin kitty. Thank you, Q. And My Unfinished Journey sent $2.22 and says, hail Eric and SR for doing a great job with AP and K-Buck. I have no idea if that was Jesus. I think I'm going to need to unpack that this afternoon. But hopefully, thank you. For all of the volunteers who are moderating this, who are call screening. There's no way we can do this without you. And Elliot, brother, it's so much fun, more fun with you here. So
thanks, man. I'm happy to be here. So I was glad I was free. So
I really appreciate it. All right. If there's not anything else, I think it's about time we wrap up and head over to the after show.
That's not bad, man. I got to go to the bathroom, so I'll be there in a few minutes.
Same. Yeah. All right. So until next time, I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Secular Rarity.
This is Skeptic Generation.
We're glad we had this talk.